Hey everyone, Joel here. Welcome back to the channel. If you have ever tried to research a high yield income ETF properly, you will know how troublesome it can be. First, you go to one website to check the price and chart. Then you go to another website to check the yield. Then you go to the fund issuer's website to check the distribution history. Then you search again to understand the strategy. Then if you want to compare between two funds, you will need to toggle between different websites, jump here and there. And after jumping from website to website, you may still be left with the same big question. Is this ETF actually good? The problem is not that there is no data. The problem is that the data is scattered everywhere. And for high yield ETFs, this is even more important because the headline yield can be very misleading. A fund can show 10%, 12%, 20%, or even 100% yield. But the real questions are, is the yield healthy? Is the income stable? Is the NAV being preserved? How much risk am I taking? And is this ETF actually suitable for my portfolio? So I decided to build something for myself, a one-stop research portal for high-yield income ETFs. It is called YieldScope. YieldScope pulls the key information into one clean dashboard, scores the ETF across different areas, and then use Claude AI to give a plain, simple English verdict. I built it mainly for my own research, but now I want to let viewers like you have a try. So in this video, I will walk you through how YieldScope works, and I will use QQQI and SPYI as examples. Now before we begin, quick disclaimer, this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not financial advice. I'm not telling you to buy or sell any ETF. Please do your own research and make decisions based on your own risk tolerance and investment goals. Alright, let's get into it. So what is YieldScope? YieldScope is a research portal focused on high yield income ETFs. The goal is not just to show you the yield. The goal is to help you understand the quality of that yield. On the homepage, you can see the main message. Know exactly what you are earning. YieldScope scores high-yield income ETFs based on 5 areas: yield quality, income stability, NAV preservation, risk, and cost. Then it gives an AI verdict in plain English. That is important to me because sometimes ETF data is everywhere. You need to check Yahoo Finance, you need to check the fund websites, you need to check distribution history, you need to compare returns. And by the time you're done, you may still not know whether the fund is actually good for your purpose. So YieldScope tries to bring all of that into one clean view. You search for the ticker and it generates the analysis. So to use YieldScope, the process is very simple. There are 3 steps. First, you search for any ETF ticker, for example, QQQI, SPYI, JEPI, JEPQ, SCHD, etc. Second, YieldScope scores the ETF on 5 dimensions. Third, you read the AI verdict. The AI verdict is not meant to hype up the ETF. It is meant to give a balanced view. What is good about the fund? What are the risks? Who is this ETF suitable for? And what should investors watch out for? For me, this is useful because I don't want to chase yield blindly. I want income, but I also want to understand what I'm giving up in exchange for the income. Now, to illustrate all the features, I will use one ETF as an example. So let me type QQQI. Now, QQQI is the newest Nasdaq 100 high income ETF. On YieldScope, once I search for QQQI, the portal gives me a full dashboard. At the top, I can see the price, the trailing distribution yield, and the basic fund information. So for QQQI, the price shown here is around $56.32 as of today's recording, and the trailing distribution yield is 13.45%. Immediately, this tells me that QQQI is a high income product. But again, yield alone is not enough. So I scroll down to see the YieldScope scores. QQQI gets an overall score of 82 out of 100, which the portal labels as excellent. The individual scores are quite interesting. Yield quality, 100 points. Income stability is 88. NAV preservation is 75, the risk score is 66, and the expense score is 50. This gives me a quick snapshot. The yield is attractive, the income has been quite stable, the NAV score is decent but not perfect. The risk score reminds me that this is still an equity risk product. And the expense score shows that the cost is not cheap compared to a plain vanilla index ETFs. That is exactly the kind of overview I want. Not just high yield, buy now, but a more balanced picture. Next, YieldScope shows the key metrics. For QQQI, the trailing 12-month yield is 13.45%. The annual distribution is about $7.57. The distribution frequency is monthly. The last distribution shown is 62 cents or close to 63 cents. There are 27 distribution records shown. Then we also have the total return data. The year-to-date return is 9.19%. The 1-year total return is 26.23%. These are strong numbers, but I always remind myself that recent performance must be viewed in context. QQQI is tied to Nasdaq 100 exposure, so when tech and growth stocks do well, QQQI can also look very strong. But when Nasdaq corrects, investors must be prepared for drawdowns. That is why YieldScopes also show risk and fund information. For QQQI, the beta shown is 0.9. The standard deviation is 17.66%. The max drawdown is negative 21.86%. The expense ratio is 0.68%. The AUM is 11.7 billion and the fund has 107 holdings. We can also see that the inception date was January 30th, 2024. Now, all this data tells me that QQQI is not some small unknown ETF. It has real scale, but the drawdown number also tells me something important. This is not a bond substitute. This is not a money market fund. This is still an equity-linked income ETF. So position sizing matters. Next, let me show you the income calculator. One feature I personally like is the income calculator. This is where YieldScope lets you estimate the monthly income based on the ETF's trailing yield. For example, if I put in $50,000 in QQQI, the calculator estimates around $560.42 per month. That works out to be around $6,725 per year. The portal also shows that at a price of $56.32 per share, this would be around 887 shares. Now, of course, this is only an estimate. Distributions can change, share price can change, NAV can go up or down. The yield is not guaranteed. But as an income investor, I find this useful because it helps me quickly visualize what a position size can produce. Instead of just looking at percentages, I can translate it into actual cash flow. And for my own portfolio planning, that is very useful. Now let's look at the AI verdict. This is one of the most important parts of YieldScope. For QQQI, the AI verdict says that QQQI is one of the more compelling covered call ETFs for income investors who understand and accept equity risk. It highlights the 13.45% yield, the stable monthly distributions, the tax-efficient option structure, and the large institutional scale of the fund. But it also gives a clear warning. This is an equity risk product. It has already experienced a drawdown of around negative 21.86%. Its yield is tied to volatility levels, and if volatility drops, the income could also reduce. This is exactly the kind of honest assessment I want, because I don't want YieldScope to just tell me what I want to hear. I want it to tell me what I need to know. For QQQI, the key positives are strong distribution consistency, tax-efficient option structure, strong recent total returns, large AUM and good liquidity, and a balanced risk profile for an income product. But the key risks are also clear: equity drawdown risk, volatility-dependent income, short operating history, upside cap risk, and expense ratio drag. So the verdict is not simply QQQI is good. The verdict is more nuanced. QQQI may be suitable for investors who want meaningful monthly income from Nasdaq 100 exposure and can tolerate equity level drawdowns. That is very important from saying everyone should buy it. Now, below the AI verdict, YieldScope also answers common investor questions. For example, What is the ETF about? How does this ETF generate its yield? Is the yield healthy or misleading? What trade-offs am I accepting to get this yield? How stable is the income stream? And is this ETF suitable for my investing goal? This section is important because many investors, especially newer investors, may not know what questions to ask. They see a high yield and get excited. But with some income ETFs, we need to ask deeper questions. Where is the yield coming from? Is the fund selling options? Is it using leverage? Is it returning capital? Is the NAV being destroyed? Is the income stable? What happens in a crash? What happens in a low volatility market? YieldScope tries to answer these questions in plain English. That makes the research process much easier. Next, YieldScope also shows the top holdings. For QQQI, the top holdings include names like Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, AVGO, MU, and TSLA. This is important because QQQI is not just an income product. It is also linked to the Nasdaq 100. So when I buy QQQI, I'm not buying a pure dividend fund. I'm buying a tech-heavy portfolio that uses options to generate income. That explains why the fund can participate in growth markets, but it can also explain why the risk can be higher. If big tech sells off, QQQI will feel it. So the holding section reminds me what I actually own. Now let's move to the comparison feature. If I click this button, this is where YieldScope becomes even more useful. Instead of analyzing one ETF in isolation, I can compare two ETFs side by side. So for this example, I compare QQQI versus SPYI and I click compare. It will take some time to load. Now QQQI is based on the Nasdaq 100. SPYI is based on the S&P 500. Both are news covered call ETFs. Both use tax-efficient option strategies, but their underlying exposure is different. QQQI is more tech-heavy. SPYI is broader and more diversified. On YieldScope, QQQI shows a yield of 13.45%. SPYI shows a yield of 11.66%. So QQQI offers a higher yield, but that does not automatically mean QQQI is better. When we look at the overall YieldScope scores, QQQI scores 82, while SPYI scores 87. So even though QQQI has the higher yield, SPYI has a stronger overall score. That is a very important point. Higher yield does not always mean better fund. Sometimes the better fund is the one with the better balance between yield, risk, NAV preservation, and stability. Now let's go through the key comparison. QQQI has a trailing yield of 13.45%. SPYI has a trailing yield of 11.66%. So QQQI has a slightly higher yield. Both have an expense ratio of 0.68%. QQQI has AUM of around 11.7 billion, while SPYI has AUM of around 9.5 billion. Both are large funds. For year-to-date returns, QQQI is at 9.19%, while SPYI is at 5.75%. So on recent performance, QQQI has done better. But then we look at the risk. QQQI has beta of 0.9, while SPYI has beta of 0.71. QQQI has standard deviation of 17.66%, while SPYI has standard deviation of 12.91%. Then we also see that QQQI has a max drawdown of negative 21.86%, while SPYI has a max drawdown of negative 18.53%. Now this tells us the trade-off very clearly. QQQI gives higher yield and stronger recent returns, but SPYI gives lower volatility, lower beta, and better drawdown profile. So the choice depends on what you want. Do you want higher income and more growth exposure? Or do you want a more stable core income holding? That is the kind of decision YieldScope helps me to think through. Now, YieldScope also gives a head-to-head breakdown. For yield and income, QQQI is the winner. It has a higher trailing yield than SPYI. It also delivers higher annual income per unit. This makes QQQI attractive for investors who want to maximize monthly cash flow. For total return and performance, QQQI also wins based on the recent numbers. Its 1-year total return and year-to-date returns are stronger than SPYI. But for risk and volatility, SPYI is the winner. SPYI has lower beta, lower standard deviation, and a smaller max drawdown. For cost efficiency, they are basically the same because both funds have the same expense ratio of 0.68%. For income stability, SPYI has a slight edge. Its distributions have been more stable, while QQQI has a slightly wider distribution range. So again, the conclusion is balanced. QQQI is better for higher income and more aggressive investors. SPYI is better for investors who want a more reliable core income holding. Next, YieldScope also gives a simple best for section. For QQQI, the portal say it is best suited for income investors with higher risk tolerance who also want meaningful equity upside exposure to the Nasdaq 100 technology heavy growth engine. That makes sense. QQQI is not just about income. It's about income plus tech exposure. So if an investor believes in long-term tech growth and can accept volatility, QQQI may be attractive. For SPYI, the portal say it is better suited for conservative income investors, retirees, or investors in the distribution phase who prioritize capital preservation and predictable monthly cash flow over maximum yield. That also makes sense. SPYI is linked to the S&P 500, which is broader than the Nasdaq 100, so it may be more suitable as a core income holding. This is exactly how I personally think about income ETFs. Some funds can be core holdings, some funds can be satellite holdings, some funds are for aggressive income, some funds are for more stable income. YieldScope helps me put each ETF into the right role. The final AI verdict from YieldScope is quite practical. For most income-focused investors, SPYI is a stronger overall choice. Why? Because it has a higher overall score, it has better NAV preservation, it has lower volatility, and it has a longer track record. But for QQQI, it is not an inferior fund. It has a higher yield, it has strong income quality, and it has delivered stronger recent returns. So the most practical solution may not be choosing only one. It may be a blended allocation. For example, an investor could use SPYI as a core income holding, then add a small QQQI position to boost overall portfolio yield and gain exposure to Nasdaq 100 growth. This is the kind of conclusion I like. It is not extreme. It is not clickbait. It is not this ETF is the best. It is more like, here are the numbers, here are the trade-offs, here is who each fund may suit. Now make a better decision. That is what I want YieldScope to do. Now the reason I built YieldScope is simple. I researched a lot of high yield income ETFs and the space is getting more crowded. There are covered call ETFs, option income ETFs, Bitcoin income ETFs, gold income ETFs, single stock income ETFs, and many more. And when every fund is showing attractive yield numbers, it becomes very easy to chase the highest yield without understanding the risk. So YieldScope helps me to slow down and ask better questions. And that is the main purpose of YieldScope. It is not a buy or sell signal. It is not financial advice. It is a research assistant that helps me organize the data and make better informed decisions. So for now, I'm opening the beta version of YieldScope to viewers who support the channel and my Substack. So if you want to try YieldScope, here is what you need to do. First, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Second, subscribe to my Substack, Joel Income Journal. And after you are done, come back to this video and comment "done" in the comments below. Once I see your comment, I will send you the link to access YieldScope. And just to be transparent, I'm actually paying for Claude AI to run the analysis behind YieldScope. So when you're using the portal, you are getting AI-powered ETF analysis for free. You don't need to create an account in YieldScope, but you need to sign in to Vercel to use YieldScope. Vercel is basically the platform where I host YieldScope. I'm not affiliate to Vercel. You don't need to pay anything. You just search the ETF ticker and YieldScope pulls together the data, scores the fund, and gives you the AI verdict. So I think this is honestly very good value, especially if you are already researching high yield income ETFs on your own. This is my way of letting the community test the portal first give feedback and help me improve it over time. So try searching for the ETFs you already own. Try comparing two ETFs you are deciding between, and let me know whether the analysis help you see the fund more clearly. Alright, so that is a quick walkthrough of YieldScope. In today's example, we look at QQQI and SPYI. If you want to try YieldScope, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to my Substack, then comment down below. I will send you the link, and let me know in the comments which ETF comparison you want me to do next. Is it QQQI versus JEPQ? Is it SPYI versus JEPI? Or maybe MSTY versus another high yield fund? Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.